In a sharp escalation over integrity in the booming prediction market industry, Kalshi has suspended Republican Senate candidate Mark Moran for 5 years and fined him $6,229.30. The disciplinary action issued this week stems from what the platform calls clear political insider trading. Moran placed bets on his own future candidacy months before he publicly announced his campaign for the Virginia Senate race. He wagered on events tied directly to his own political moves, including the very fact that he would run for office. Moran rebuffed the company's attempts to settle the matter privately. Instead, he turned the suspension into a public statement of defiance. In a post on X, he admitted placing a deliberate $100 bet on his own candidacy, hoping to get caught. His goal, he wrote, was to spotlight how platforms like Kalshi are destroying young men by fueling a culture of vice. He vowed that, if elected senator, he would impose significant penalties on them through what he called a vice tax. The controversy arrives at a moment when prediction markets are under very intense national scrutiny. Just one day earlier, federal authorities arrested U.S. Special Forces Master Sergeant Gannon Ken Van Dyke after he allegedly turned classified details from a real-world military operation into a $400,000 windfall. Money he then tried to hide through cryptocurrency and brokerage accounts. Van Dyke, an active-duty soldier stationed at Fort Bragg, participated in Operation Absolute Resolve, the clandestine raid that captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro from the presidential palace in Caracas. Prosecutors say he used his advanced knowledge of the mission to place long-shot bets on Polymarket that Maduro would be out by early January. The soldier now faces multiple felony charges, including theft of classified information and fraud. While Moran's bets involved his own political future and Van Dyke's involved a classified military raid, the two episodes illustrate the same core tension. As prediction markets explode in popularity and trade billions of dollars weekly, the line between legitimate forecasting and exploiting non-public information is vanishingly thin. Joining us now to discuss the man at the center of the earlier controversy, candidate for U.S. Senate in Virginia, Mark Moran. Mark.
Thank you for having me.
What is this vice tax you're proposing, and did you really bet on yourself to get caught?
I did. So as a former investment banker, placing a $100 bet on something that I knew was going to happen and already publicly reported happening, to me that is by definition not trading on insider information. Trading on material non-public information would mean that the information wasn't out there. Now, I've been calling attention to prediction sites and the ability for them to essentially sway elections for the past 2 years. In October of last year, there was a New York Post article where I was able to go and discover foreign nationals who were manipulating the NYC mayoral race. So that was where my fascination really began, to see that in American politics, that historically it's been polls that inform the media. The media then is the one to inform the voter.
Right.
Well, with these markets, they can be swayed by whether they're actors for another candidate or foreign nationals who want the absolute worst socialist candidate to get elected. They can move those markets, which then informs media, then it informs the median voter. So I look at it as my patriotic duty to stand up to that.
Okay, so vice tax associated with a Republican is usually a terrible thing. What is your proposal?
Sure, and as a correction from the intro, I actually started off as a Democrat, and I'm running as an independent now because I was cut out from fundraising, speaking on college campuses, all of this because I disagreed with them on Virginia gerrymandering as well as stances on the Second Amendment.
Which is a big deal story right now.
It is, especially what's going on in Fairfax County there and all of the mail-in ballots that push this over.
Because the stakes of that question is going to be, we either have 10 more Democrats in the House,
yes,
or and one Republican, or we don't. So the problem is going to be huge if the court in Virginia is actually able to stop that.
Absolutely. And I look at what's going on in Virginia as the battleground of the future of America is in Virginia. That the Democratic Party, and specifically Spanberger, that they want to push her through to 2032. And Virginia's a purple state. It's one that revolutionary thought was created in. We haven't done much recently, but when you look at what's going on now, that is not the Virginia I know and that the majority of the Commonwealth knows.
So with your investment background, you're familiar with new technology that enables more and more Americans to get involved in the financial world. Talk about the dilemmas that we're going to be facing with these betting markets, because as we highlighted with this latest story, the soldier who bet on his own raid, clearly a problem there because you've got national security secrets being fairly broadcast on a public outlet. But when it comes to cases like yours, what are some of the big moral qualms or quandaries that we're going to be facing with betting markets?
When we look at Kalshi coming out with their announcement against me and 2 other candidates, and then a day later, Polymarket coming out against an E6 enlisted soldier, they happen at the same time right now. Why is that? It's because both of these companies, they're one in a valuation race. They're both within the mid-20s in terms of valuation, billions of dollars, right? They're going to go public soon. They're probably going to go public in the fall. So they're in a race of who gets there first. But also, being in D.C., if you noticed all of the green marketing signs that have come in the past year, that's because they're on marketing blitzes. That happens with influencers, but now Kalshi has tried to take over D.C. because they know that they're operating through a loophole with the CFTC, that this is gambling, and that really what they're doing is they're hurting the Native Americans who have gambling on their reservations.
Wait. Yeah. So hold on, pause. That is crazy. So
no one's standing up for the Native Americans.
No, wait, but these gambling sites are not considered gambling. I don't think most Americans know that.
Exactly. It is a loophole in terms of the regulation. So then now you have people on the Agriculture Committee who are in charge of the CFTC, right, who have no idea what these are, who are supposed to regulate this, when in reality, Kalshi, the CEO is Tarek, I know him, and Shane, the CEO of Polymarket, I also know him. They're about the same age as me. That Tarek came in and just used a loophole through the CFTC by getting overpriced New York City lawyers, white shoe attorneys, to be able to go in and find this. That we all know that these aren't contracts. This is just gambling.
How are they going to get away with that down the road? I mean, lawmakers, I think at some point will catch on to this, right? Or have they caught on to it and are they letting it slide? What's going on?
They caught on to it now because I was the one to do it and to not back down or apologize. Because I appreciate in your intro, this is the first network that hasn't led with me being on a reality TV show. But that's to get attention.
Yeah.
And I got attention. I got the nation's attention with this. And the lawmakers don't know what's going on with these, that it's a loophole, essentially extorting the law and manipulating it, which is how massive multi-billion-dollar corporations do this and take advantage of middle America. And that this is something that if we don't wake up to it, well, the consequences are going to be so grave. Because
who's making the rules on this right now? Because it's not really the lawmakers who don't quite understand this new world. It's the younger guys and gals who understand this game. They're making the rules and they're making the definitions. So that's my take on it, but what's your take on it? Who are the actual names and faces who are making the rules and defining the terms in this discussion?
Well, no one in this town, because this town of weak men has led to this generation of lost young men. And that younger men know what's going on, right? Why are younger men so involved in Polymarket and Kalshi, right? Well, it's because men want purpose. Men want the opportunity to have risk, to be able to have competition. But we live in a society where that is not possible.
With reward that comes with it, right?
Right. But there is no fairness in this because it's a game that can be manipulated by insiders. There was a guy in Paris the other day who used a blow dryer to manipulate.
I saw this story.
I mean, what are we doing here, right? So
wait, how much money he made? He made a lot of money off of this.
I think $33,000.
So to bring people up to speed, he had this bet that the temperatures would reach a certain degree, and it was impossible. It wasn't going to happen. But he went and found the temperature, the thermostat that was measuring this, and put a hairdryer to it.
Exactly.
And he won, what, $30,000?
Yeah, $33,000.
But he did this across Europe.
Yeah. And that's brilliant, but that's what's going to happen to all of these aspects of society, right? So I look at politics as number one, that we should absolutely ban anything relating to our domestic politics, any prediction markets. We should not have. That is a simple step one.
But then you fall into this trap of, like, what do you say to people who say, okay, the technology is here, it's going to happen anyway. You're not going to be able to legislate people's behavior. What do you say to that?
That this is the battle of our lives, that if we allow this to go through and we don't push back, then we will continue to have young men who get hooked on the dopamine addiction of video games.
There's billions of dollars involved in this, Mark. How are you going to fight that? That machine's going to be very powerful in D.C.
It's going to be very powerful, but I look around, I don't see anyone else standing up to it. And I look at the number of young men who have lost purpose, who have no meaning, have no ability to afford a home, who have no ability to even be in a relationship, right? Which is why they withdraw to these fantasy worlds. Because if you can't create the world, well, you're going to essentially try to withdraw from it and create it online on these apps, right? Because in this, you can actually control that narrative, that you can have competition, you can have risk, and ultimately, if you win, you'll have purpose. But America used to be young men who would actually produce things. Now we have young men who predict things, because we live in a society where the only way that if you follow what everyone tells you, you go to the best schools possible, you take out student loans to the point that you can't afford a house, you get an adult daycare job, or you have the opportunity to go die in a war. There is no meaning, because we push this all offshore. We don't build things anymore, and it's an entire destruction of young men. And we know weak men create weak societies, and that's where we're at.
Well, I made a mistake by referring to you as a Republican earlier. That's my bad, but you actually sound a lot like a Republican, so I'm going to apologize. But yes, you're running as an independent. You sound like a Republican there, but this sounds like it's a problem that's going to be around for a very long time.
Exactly.
I don't see anyone else really talking about this.
No one's talking about it. No one is. And that's the problem, right? That these are moral issues, but they affect people, because if you can't have...
But you're saying it's affecting men in particular.
Young men, I mean, that's the majority of users on these apps, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a gamified experience, but it's one that you think, because it triggers into your dopamine receptors that you've developed since you were young playing video games.
Wow.
It's almost as if this is all designed that you cut recess time right at the advent of video games, and then you make it so young men have no choice. They get hooked on pornography, can't be in a regular relationship, right? Have unrealistic expectations of what life is, and then they hit the real world. They're working behind a computer. I used to be a banker. I was working on Microsoft Excel 18 hours a day, and you realize that this is not at all what I thought it would be. I thought I'd be doing something meaningful. But when we move all the meaningful jobs outside of America and we offshore them because it's cheaper, well, then now we're faced with a bunch of young men. We already have one lost generation, and if we allow this stuff to go further, we're going to have two lost generations, and this is done.
Very, very interesting perspective. Mark Moran, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, coming up, we do a deeper dive into the Southern Poverty Law Center and what actually happens next. We visit with a group that's been fighting this battle for years. They have a lot to say. We'll be right back.